Good afternoon. With a quorum present, the Maricopa Regional Continuum Care Board meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. And for those participating via Zoom, please state your name when you're making a comment or asking a question and mute when you're not speaking. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you'd like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information table in the hallway and give it to MAG staff. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available at the information table in the hallway. And if you purchase a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available for MAG staff. Katie, please take a roll call. Members, as we are welcoming new board members today, please share your name, your title of your organization, and how long you've been on the COC board after Katie calls your name.
That was a lot of info. So Rob, I'm going to make you start. Co-chair Rob Podlager.
Rob Podlager, Chief Community Development and Engagement Officer for Valley of the Sun United Way. Started with the COC in January and started co-chair in April.
Thank you. Tish Brown-Gambino.
Letitia Brown-Gambino, Chief Program Officer here at UMOM New Day Centers. And I have been in Phoenix for a year and a half and been on the board for about 6 months.
Thank you. Jackson Campbell.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Campbell. I'm the Director of Behavioral Health with US Vets. Been with US Vets for over a year now, and in Phoenix for about 5 years.
And Jacqueline's been on the board with us since January. Chad Gary. Chad's here. Lisa Glow. Lisa either. Chris Hallett.
Hi, Chris Hallett, City of Peoria Neighborhood and Human Services Director. Been with the city for 4 years, and I've been on the board for 1 year.
Thanks, Chris. Michael Hughes.
Hi, can you hear me? Is that this? Michael Hughes. I am the CEO at A New Leaf. I've been there 40 plus years, and this is my maiden voyage with the COC. This is my first meeting.
Thanks, Michael. Natalie Lewis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Lewis. I'm the Deputy City Manager for the City of Mesa. I've been with Mesa for 15 years. Prior to that, I was with the City of Scottsdale for 12. So I've been with the government a long time, and this is my first continuum care meeting that I'm participating on the board. I appreciate being part of it.
Thanks, Natalie. Rachel Millie. Let's see Rachel yet. Sean Pierce.
Good afternoon, Sean Pierce, Deputy Director for the Maricopa County Human Services Department. I've been on the COC since July of 2022.
Thanks, Sean. Vicki Phillips.
Hello, Vicki Phillips, and I am with Community Bridges. I am the Chief Clinical and Development Officer. I have collectively been with CBI for 15 years, and this is my first board meeting. However, I've had the privilege to sit on subcommittees previously. Nice to see everyone.
Thanks, Vicki. Joan Service.
Hi, good afternoon. Joan Service, Executive Director of the Arizona Housing Coalition. I think I've been on the COC board since the pandemic started, it feels like. So I don't even know, like 10 years now, I think. No, whatever, a couple years.
Thank you, Joan. Everybody in the room audibly laughed. Charles Sullivan.
Hi, Charles Sullivan, President and CEO of ABC Housing. I've been with ABC for 15 years. I think I came on the board at the same time as Joan, 3 or 4 years, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Charles. Danielle Wright.
Hi, I'm Danielle Wright. I am the Director of Victim Services at the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. I have been on the board since January of 2022.
Thanks, Danielle. Lisa, you just joined us. Can you give your name, title, organization, and how long you've been on the board? We will come back to you, Lisa, if you cannot unmute. I think that is all, unless I missed any board members. All right, back to you, co-chair.
Great. The next item on the agenda is a call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under the Continuum Care Board that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Katie, were there any comments received or anyone who wishes to offer comments at this time?
There are no public comments received and no one in the audience today.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move on to the next agenda item. Our next item is approval of the consent agenda. Items 3A and 3B are on the agenda for consent. Does any member of the board have questions, comments, or request a presentation on any of these items? With no comment, does any member of the public wish to comment on any items on the consent agenda? With no comments, is there a discussion of the, wait, I'm sorry, let me back up there. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Could I have a motion to approve the consent items 3A and 3B?
So moved. Sean Pierce.
Thank you, Sean. Can I get a second?
I'll second. This is Joan Service.
Thank you, Joan, for the second. Is there a discussion of the motion? Great. For the board members in the room, we will do a voice vote. For those in favor, please say aye.
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 Yeah, you can still vote.
I can still vote. Okay. Aye.
Great, thank you. Those opposed, please say nay. For members joining remotely, I will ask Katie to proceed with a roll call vote. Please indicate clearly how you vote, stating yay or nay after your name is called.
Tish Brown Gambino,
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell,
Yay.
Todd Gary, Lisa Glow,
Yay.
Chris Hallett,
Yay.
Natalie Lewis, Rachel Milne, Sean Pierce,
Yay.
Joan Service,
Yay.
Charles Sullivan,
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
The motion passes unanimously. Back to you, co-chair.
Great, thank you. The next agenda item will be updates. Chairs of committees with recent activity will be asked to share with us. Updates will also be provided in the monthly newsletter sent out by MAG, and a memo is included in the packet for your reference. First, we're going to hear from Matt Kelly with Mercy Care and Gisani, I apologize, I went blank on that. Gisani Goodwin with Phoenix Rescue Mission for an update on the Coordinated Entry Committee.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good afternoon. So for coordinated entry, I'll start off with a couple updates and then I'll shoot it over to Matthew who will close this out. So first update is that we have now closed the applications for new members for the Coordinated Entry Committee. It's still being finalized in as far as reviewing applications. However, we received a total of 13 applications with 7 open positions to be filled. And so we're really excited about bringing on some new members and hopefully having a full committee. The next update is the home-based evaluation. So we actually had them present at our last meeting, and out of their presentation, we did have people that just had questions, and there wasn't much time for us to really dive in deep for a discussion. So what we decided to do was send out the the presentation to the group and basically compile questions that we have now sent or are sending to home base for them to be able to review them and then hopefully be able to provide some more clarification when they return to the committee on the 10th of November. And so hopefully with that, we'll be able to just have some more clarification and then hopefully be able to dive in a little bit deeper on the evaluation and basically help to answer people's questions and provide them enough time to do so. So those are the two updates, and I'll shoot it over to Matthew.
Hello, everybody. Just for everybody who's here and new, my name is Matthew Kelly. I'm with Mercy Care. I'm the lead housing liaison there. I've been participating in COC activities, I think, for about 4 years, and I've been the co-chair of coordinated entry for 2 years, I think. Anyways, so thank you for having us. My update is strictly related to the domestic violence work group that we've been working on. Most recently, we met last week and I've been working on an assessment or prioritization tool that the DV community is going to be working on. We had gotten a lot of feedback from the community and then actually sent it out to racial equity partners who joined us last week for some feedback regarding the tool and kind of like some tweaking and improvements on that. We have a little bit more tweaking to do on that. Next week, I believe we're meeting to finalize that, and then we should be moving that forward to, I believe, the plan is to move it forward to the program managers meeting through the domestic violence providers and kind of start to work on an approval process for that. And additional to that, the other thing we are working on is increasing the number of DV providers who are participating in the coordinated entry reporting. I believe at the last report, we had 2 providers who were participating. I do know that just through my personal conversations and also some commitments from different providers, we should have another 3 or 4 DV providers contributing to that twice monthly report. That is super important for us to be kind of moving forward with the work. Once we start to receive kind of a full account of what the needs are within the domestic violence community, we can actually start to determine what level of prioritization we're going to be providing for that community. And what that really means is, you know, we're looking at doing particularly a set aside or a carve out for that population. But what we really need to understand is what the actual need is before we determine what kind of a carve out or a prioritization we're going to be looking at. So we're looking forward to getting that information and starting to be able to gather that. So yeah. Are there any questions for either Jasani or myself?
Great. With no questions, Jasani and Matthew, thank you very much, as always, for the update. Appreciate the work that you're doing for us. And next up, we're going to hear from Rachel Milne. Rachel, when we started the call, we had everybody introduce themselves. And since you're a new board member, if you could introduce yourself and who you are representing. And then I know you want to be able to provide us an update from the ESG committee.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Rachel Milne. I am the director of the Office of Homeless Solutions here at the City of Phoenix. I apologize for being late, but wanted to give an update on what the ESG committee has been up to this summer. A huge thank you to Cleo for helping us with the work that we accomplished. The ESG committee voted and to approve shared scopes of work for both requests for proposals and upcoming contracts for ESG interventions, including street outreach, prevention, shelter, and rapid rehousing. So really hoping to streamline this, not only for the cities and states who issue RFPs, but for the nonprofit community that responds to those RFPs, so that they're seeing sort of like scopes of work, no matter who they're applying from. So it was a big lift, and it took a lot of cooperation and coordination. So we're excited about that. And then our work coming up will really be focused on training. We have a lot of new staff at all of the ESG committee members. All of the different cities in the state have lots of new people. So we're working with Corporation for Supportive Housing to start training that new workforce, kicking it off in December with an ESG 101 training. We've got training on some ideas for training in the future months on data and metrics as it relates to ESG, subrecipient management, doing risk assessments and monitoring. So lots to come from the ESG work. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for the update. Do any other committees or subcommittees have an update at this time? With none, do any members of the board have discussion?
Yeah, okay.
Great. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next agenda item. In October, we announced the opening of a co-chair position to join me after Ryan stepped off the board. Do we have any interest from any board members to be co-chair?
None of you all expressed interest via email. And Rob is happy to keep going on his own, but wanting to throw that out there and have a discussion if anybody was interested, or if you do not want to express interest now and want to send me an email after this, you're more than welcome to do so, and we can talk to you further about the opportunity.
Katie, can I ask, is there an outline of co-chair responsibilities that we can all take a look at for us new folks?
Yes, I can send it out to all of you after this board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next up, Cleo One, Human Services Planner with MAG, will provide an overview of the system flow dashboard.
Hello, excuse me. Hello, everyone. Katie, how would you like to do this? Would you like me to share my screen with us virtually? Oh,
I believe
you've
Tyler
got
is.
it. Okay, great. Even better. All right. So hold on one moment. Let me exit my full screen. Okay. So for anyone newly looking at the dashboard, here's sort of the beginning informational landing page. If you scroll down, you get a layout of a bunch of definitions that can help you navigate the dashboard. Very useful. I refer to them constantly. All right, let's move to the active overview tab. Potentially. One more time. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're seeing after that large drop in July, the total number of active households sort of leveling out again. We had small increases in August. That's being balanced right now with some small decreases from September. The most significant decrease you can see here in the subpopulations is a 9% drop. Well, sorry, in just the overall active households, the 9% drop in families. It looks like the line is pretty consistent, but when you look at the numbers, it's sort of seeing the most significant drop, singles, a 1% drop, all households, just 2%. With the subpopulations that we have here, this also mostly reflects these drops with the exception of our youth and elderly population. We're seeing overall this really significant drop still in unsheltered with 10%. That just kind of seems to keep going down since that July drop. Elderly, however, we have a 2% increase, and youth, we have a 4% increase. So then we can go to the flow details, the third tab there. All right, so we have outflow outpacing inflow, but just barely right now. So overall, we're seeing the numbers continue to sort of do this leveling out after those summer spikes. We have an increase in 2% with our new clients. The return from inactive is down 14%, which is a really nice number. On Unknown or negative exits are up 4%, but we're also seeing an increase of 6% with our total housed. So you can see that sort of balancing the inflow and outflow of our system. Really nice to see that increase in the total housed number. And then with that brief overview of the dashboard, are there any questions anyone has?
I have a question. This is Natalie Lewis from Mesa.
Hi, Natalie.
Do we have any information about the number of either increase or decrease for women in particular in homelessness?
So I believe the last time Katie looked into that, which was about 3 weeks to a month ago, there were not any significant changes specific to women. In fact, I think it actually went down even just like a tiny percent. Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Cleo, you're right on the money there. Overall, we're seeing an increase in women, but it's not proportionally different just because we're seeing an overall increase in total households. So I guess slightly like the analysis we were looking at was Q1 versus Q2 of 2022. And so there was not a significant increase in number of women. And we actually saw the opposite. We saw a slight decrease in the percentage of number of women showing up in the system.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tish from UMOM. I just have a question about the families. That there was a 9% decrease in families. Is that by household or by individuals?
So that 9% is calculated from the total households. However, the person count also went down by about 250 people. So if you go look at the dashboard yourself, you can sort of toggle over the numbers, and the person count for families in August was 2,613, and that drops down to 2,367 for the month of September.
Thank you.
One other question. This is Natalie Lewis from Mesa. One of my colleagues in the East Valley was just expressing interest in wanting to look at the HMIS data a little bit more closely. And I didn't know if we were planning on providing a good detailed overview for the local jurisdiction committee at some point in the future.
That might be something Katie would be able to answer.
Natalie, we definitely can, if that's something that, and I see Rachel, you nodding your head as well. Happy to have that on the next local jurisdiction committee. And then just as a context, the reason this system flow dashboard is coming to you all today is next month you will see the homelessness trends report come to you for approval. So this is kind of a precursor for what's to come with that data, and that data will be for July, August, and September will be included in that Q3 report.
Great. Are there any other questions? Cleo, do you have anything else?
I'm sorry, this is Tish again.
No
I just have a quick clarification question. So Katie, when the dashboards are presented next month, the trend dashboards, are we going to be able to see the race equity dashboard soon as well? Those trends?
So Tish may need more info from you, but the homelessness trends report is that kind of 4-page report that really summarizes all of the, and it does take race equity into account. It breaks down the head of household demographics for the last month, so just September. I think separately from that, the race equity committee is doing a deeper dive into the system performance measures by race, but that is not a dashboard. That would be a one-time data dive.
Are we due for an update?
From what?
From the race equity committee on that dashboard, that deep dive?
So that deep dive is part of your board strategic plan, and that timeline is through next spring. So that isn't not going to be ready for you until then.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Cleo. Are there any other comments or discussion from the board? With none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Katie's going to provide an overview of the progress on Pathways Home, including timelines, partnerships, and next steps. Katie, take it away.
Thank you, Rob. So also as a precursor to this presentation going to Management Committee and Regional Council, we brought it to Local Jurisdiction Committee last month, and then bringing it to you all as the board prior to going to Management Committee and Regional Council. This is a quarterly cadence to not only have Management Committee and Regional Council understand what the COC is doing, but also bring you all closer together and share what is happening with Pathways Home. As a reminder, Management Committee is made up of all of the city managers of the 32 jurisdictions in MAG's local council of governments, and then Regional Council is all of the elected leaders, so a combination of mayors and boards of supervisors. Next slide, please. Quick overview of the presentation. I'm going to walk through the continuum of care updates. This shouldn't be new to you all, but just so you know what we are sharing with them, as well as then walk through Pathways Home and some of that work, and then talk through some next steps that are to come. Next slide, please. So first off, continuum of care, next slide. Just a quick overview of the notice of funding opportunity, letting them know we did submit the annual notice of funding opportunity on September 28th. We expect a funding announcement in early 2023. For our 2021 application, which we received in early 2022, we received $35.7 million. On top of that, you also all probably know we had a supplemental notice of funding opportunity. We submitted that on October 14th, which we were really excited about, and also expect that announcement in early 2023. Sometime between January and March is our anticipated timeline, and we applied for all that MAG could at $27.9 million. Next slide. The next big thing coming up for us at the continuum of care level is the point in time count that will occur on January 24th this year. 2023 kind of far enough from the Super Bowl, but still within HUD's guidelines of the last 10 days of January. We are working with all of the local jurisdiction staff to coordinate those, and we do expect results in mid-April. If you have not received it, we do have a kickoff for local jurisdictions on November 2nd, which is later this week. So if you are a local jurisdiction person and would like to attend that, please let me know. Next slide. So now I'm going to move into an update on Pathways Home and a lot of the work that is happening there. Next slide. As you all know, this is a 14-step action plan, really 3 overarching steps of working regionally, increasing housing and diverse partnerships. We're really excited. One of those finally turned green. So we're really moving the work forward and continuing to work through next steps. So I'll touch on just a few of those throughout the next few slides. Next slide. First, the HMIS evaluation and coordinated entry evaluation. Jasani touched on the coordinated entry evaluation in her updates, but we do expect that to be completed in late January, early February, and then move into phase 2 of that evaluation, which is really focused on implementation of some of the feedback that Homebase is giving us. Along with that, we are working on an HMIS evaluation that should launch in the next week or two, really focusing in on how is HMIS working and what improvements need to be made to that as a vendor of WellSky. And we expect completion of that in early 2023 to then move into phase 2 there as well. And then finally, we're working on completing outreach mapping. This has been an ongoing effort to really understand where outreach teams are operating, and then working through some policies and procedures and a landscape map of services to further align some of the work that we all are doing. Next slide. Two of the other action steps that Pathways Home has been working through is developing toolkits to really understand the work and provide kind of a sample of how other individuals can take this on or other jurisdictions. We released the interdepartmental teams toolkit in July 2022 and moved into a phase 2 of that, developing flowcharts that we expect to complete by the end of the year. Second, we did 2 different community court toolkits, one focused on how to engage folks into the regional community court, and then secondly, how to launch a community court. City of Mesa was highlighted in that second court toolkit, and those were released in September of 2022 on our website and will be dispersed to local jurisdictions. Next slide, please. Lastly, just wanted to touch on some of the coordination work that we are doing. We're in the process of developing a funding filter to really understand the breadth of funding going into homelessness. This is something that we've been working on for about the last 6 months and continuing to add on it over time. Threshold, which many of you all know about, is continuing to expand services and really hosting landlord outreach events in partnerships with jurisdictions. So continue to expand where can we rent to, what landlords can we engage into Threshold, and then have a more diverse housing stock available for folks to move into. And then lastly, working with Home Matters to Arizona and their partners on this regional public education campaign with related toolkits. We are in the final stages of their strategy of how to engage and finishing up logos and things like that. There is a listening session. If you're interested in attending, please reach out to me and we can get the invite over to you. But do anticipate to have some of that material out in January. Next slide. Before one of the other main things that we've been working on is housing targets. And so before I dive deep into that, wanted to provide a progress update on House America. This is really our goal to rehouse 1,225 people before the end of the year and have 300 units of affordable housing enter the development pipeline. And so we are on track with both of those. 937 have been housed as of September 30th, and an additional 197 units have been added to the development pipeline. So really do anticipate to hit both of those goals by the end of 2022. Next slide, gonna walk you through some of the housing targets that we have initially put forward in Pathways Home of really initial projection to reduce homelessness by 25%. On the temporary side, we needed 770 units. On the permanent side, we needed 1,225 units. And as we kind of updated you all last quarter, we decided to revisit this on a quarterly basis, change the methodology a little bit as to how we're revisiting this. Instead of just once a year, we're going on a quarterly basis and really diving into where are we at in the progress of this. And then we have some factors to consider. So we have increasing homelessness. As many of you are aware, we are seeing more people than ever experiencing homelessness. We've already added quite a few units since 2020 when this count started. So it was all going based off of our 2020 point in time count. And so that's when units started getting built. And a lot of the things that we've gotten built so far is in response to that COVID-19 dollars. So the CARES dollars, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. And so really are trying to consider what is 2024 going to look like when a lot of that funding cuts off. Next slide. So going to dive first into those temporary housing units. Since January 2020, we've added 1,154 additional units, which is mind-boggling. We have an additional 556 that are committed to open before 2027. But of those units, 1,525 are CARES and ARPA funded. So the majority of that is looking at what is temporary funding, and we don't know what that long-term plan looks like kind of after that funding expires. Next slide. On the flip side, we have permanent housing. We have 1,010 units in use from jurisdiction commitments through September. We have another 1,579 that have been committed, but not yet had folks move into those units yet. And so a similar story of the majority of those are either CARES or ARPA funded or our emergency housing vouchers, which is another funding source that came out of CARES and ARPA. So of those, the ongoing local funding is only 216 of those initial 2,589 units. And so really trying to figure out what would that next step look like on having an ongoing funding basis after 2024. So I jumped the gun a little bit. If you'll go to the next slide, some key questions that we need to be asking ourselves is, how are we addressing our increasing homelessness numbers? What is the source of ongoing funding for program sustainability after COVID funding expires? What is the source of operational funding for temporary shelters created? And then how do we address increasing housing costs across the region? Because we know that is another factor that's happening here in the Valley. We'll be diving further into these over the next quarter, bringing a much longer presentation to you all as we continue to dive in and start to look at how do we keep this ongoing funding cost going and answering some of these key questions. So with that, I'm gonna kind of leave you hanging a little bit with more to come and go into our next steps. If you go to the next slide. As we have talked about, some of these items did get finished, or you're moving from a phase 1 to a phase 2. So as we begin to accomplish these, we don't want to lose momentum. Over the next 3 months, we'll be working with the local jurisdiction committee to really start to talk about what does an update look like in a phase 2 of Pathways Home. And then in February, we'll be bringing it, or I guess in January, we'll be bringing it back to the COC board for approval. And then in February to management committee and regional council for their approval. Next slide. Last thing I want to touch on is some upcoming meetings. You all are more than welcome. You probably have these or your staff have these, but you're always more than welcome to attend any of our meetings. We also have a complete event calendar on our website with all COC meetings. And if you need an invite to any of those meetings, feel free to reach out to myself or our staff and we'll be happy to send it over. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Co-Chair Pavlagher, for questions.
Katie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it okay? No. This is Michael Hughes, a new leaf. Do you have what's your sense of the lawsuit with the city of Phoenix on how that's going to impact? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Tyler, will you stop sharing? And I'm going to actually turn it to Rachel to answer that question.
I don't know if I can answer the impact question, but I can give you just a quick status of where we are. There was an initial hearing last week on both the city's request to dismiss and also to hear the evidence from the plaintiffs and the defense. So the judge has 60 days to rule on both now. So within 60 days, we'll know whether or not the case has been dismissed and if there is any sort of temporary injunction on the city. So that's the current status.
And one last question. Has there been any discussion at all from the Super Bowl committee of any sort to do anything about the homelessness problem with the Super Bowl coming this year?
Yes and no. They did give out grants that opened in October. It is now September, and then closed at the end of September, I believe. I believe those grants are forthcoming. They pledged to give a certain percentage back, but we have not heard anything in addition that they are doing. Obviously, we know that Super Bowl is going to be a huge impact event. We are planning point in time count around it, but I don't know if I have necessarily these are the action steps that they're taking as a Super Bowl committee.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or discussion for Katie? Okay, with none, then we'll move on to the next agenda item. Request for future agenda items. Do board members have any action or discussion items for future meetings?
This is Joan. And actually, it piggybacks off of what Katie mentioned. I think those are the right questions that we need to be asking as a board, and having tough conversations and conversations that hopefully, and I'm sorry, I apologize that I don't remember how much the Pathways Home goes out to the philanthropic community. I know it definitely goes out to the local jurisdiction community and is presented and shared to the extent that legislators and state officials pay attention to all the different reports coming at them. But my whole point is that the operational support for these, because the federal funds are winnowing down, that's a major concern. And so I think we as a board should be really taking I'm looking forward to next month's conversation. So I think we should spend some time, and if staff need help with lining up folks to be there and present, I'd welcome that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other action or discussion items for future meetings? Okay. For this next agenda item, comments from the board. Is there anyone on the board that has any other announcements or events that they would like to highlight?
Joan again. I just wanted to mention, I know you guys can't even think about February 28th and March 1st, but we are at the Housing Coalition because that's when our next annual conference is. And I just wanted to highlight that the deadline for award nominations and breakout session proposals just happens to be today. So look, you don't need a dissertation, just put your thought out there. It can be like imagine you're texting me the idea. Now put that in that nomination form or breakout session proposal. It doesn't have to be really long. Just give us some ideas. You guys want to talk? We want to hear from you all. Let's make that happen.
Great. Thanks, Joan.
Rob, I have another question, if that's okay. Yes. Has there been any discussion in terms of, I know with COVID, the last few years, it's mostly all been remote. Has there been any discussion of this is the way it will stay, remote meetings, or is there discussion of moving it back toward in person?
I'll let you go first and then I'll respond also.
I will say it's completely up to you. We will always have a hybrid option, but we moved back to in-person today because that was the request of some of you and of the community. I will say it is a pretty heavy lift for staff if we only have a couple people in person. The thing that we also shared with the COC committee and that we'll share with you all is what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, probably year, although I'm sure audience members can correct me, is we have had a Zoom meeting with the option as an audience member to attend the Zoom and raise your hand in Zoom. So we tried to make it more interactive. We really need kind of an either or of like an in-person option or the Zoom audience room. It's really difficult for our staff to manage an in-person room and an audience in a Zoom room. So that would be kind of just our either or, but happy to do whatever you all would like to do. For board members, there will always be an option to attend virtually though. So.
Yeah, I'll jump in and add to that. So as Katie's first comment, today is really the first meeting that we were bringing people back in. I listened through the tenure of the board, and a lot of us are new within the past 12 months. I do think there is benefit from a community standpoint to be able to meet in person. And so I would encourage the board members to try when available to plan accordingly to be able to do this. And obviously life happens, but I do think we would add value to be in person whenever possible. And the one other piece that Katie mentioned is that some of the community members are asking for us to be in person, which I think then in turn will entice them maybe to want to be a part of that. So I just think if we can work in that direction, that would be great when available.
Natalie?
So we've had this conversation a lot at the City of Mesa as well, just for our own teams and what we're doing. And one thing that we're finding is that we're getting much better attendance by having virtual meetings and offering them. but we also miss being in person from time to time. And so what we've started to do as a different type of a hybrid is once per quarter, we just make it mandatory that it's an in-person meeting. And then the other 2 meetings are, allow for virtual. So that it gets, it helps us have the best of both worlds where we are really trying to be together from time to time, but not necessarily, but also running to make sure that we're really taking advantage of full board participation to the extent possible. So I just throw that out as another idea, as a different type of a hybrid that has been working well for us.
Great, thank you. That's a great recommendation. And I do think that if we would come to consensus and agreement, we want to be respectful to the bank staff for having to play dual roles with Zoomies and in person, but then also be able to provide the opportunity to be able to build a group of individuals when we're in person. So wonderful suggestion.
I will say you all are having a board strategic planning session coming up in December. You all should have received an invite for this meeting or a survey to determine the date of this meeting. It'll be in like mid-December. We are asking that is in person. It will be in person only, not a hybrid event, for you all to not only get to know each other, but also 3 hours on a Zoom meeting is quite painful. So please plan accordingly to be in person, and I should have an invite out to you all by the end of today. If you've not filled out that survey or not had your support staff fill out that survey, please do immediately so that we can make sure that anybody who is available to attend can attend that.
Katie, would that email be coming from you?
Yes, that email came from me a week ago Friday, so the 21st, I believe.
Great. And having that meeting in person will be great. A 3-hour Zoomie is crazy. And then maybe as a group that we can look at the calendars and figure out how to plan accordingly going forward. Okay. Are there any other announcements or events that we would like to highlight?
Sorry, Joan, I sent that on October 28th, not 21st.
Thank you, Chair Podlager. We are hosting a senior work group listening session on November 16th at 9:30 to 10:30. As everybody knows, we're seeing a rise in senior homelessness. So we just want to get everybody together and sort of see if there are practical solutions, things we can work on in order to create a work group. So if you're interested in attending that, I would highly encourage it. If we would love to see you, love to hear your thoughts. You can go ahead and email me or Katie or any of your other lovely MAG staff, and we will definitely get the invite to you. Thanks.
Are we also able to share that invite with others that may have an interest? Yep.
Absolutely. Please share it far and wide. Whoever would like to attend, we would love to have them.
And that announcement will also be in the newsletter that is going out later today.
Yes, plug the newsletter. Thank you, Haley and Katie. Okay, one last call for announcements or events. With no further business, the meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.